right, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. Eric, the preseason seemed like it took forever to get here, and it is quickly over as of tomorrow night. First off, I know you've got a lot of things going on today, so I think you probably have like a water or a soda,
Yes,
whatever you
water.
may have.
I got my water. Yeah.
I managed to squeeze in a beer, but mainly so I could show off my Inside BBI glass. Feel free to get it at the merch below, but it's beautifully done. I love it.
What's that sweatshirt that you're wearing?
Oh, and I am my Inside BBI sweatshirt. I know I went with a hoodie. It's damn hot outside, so I won't be wearing it for a long time. But here we are. A lot of things, some things we talked about just the other day, either cleared up or got more muddy, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So let's first just kind of start with some things that have changed since our last broadcast, and that starts with Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, he's off the pup, and a lot of people theoretically came back on the same day. But again, they didn't go full bore, most of them. So it was good that they're progressing to the right. But I think people got overly excited. So Andrew Thomas came off the pup. So he went to practice. He did some individual drills, but he's still not doing the team drills. And then he was doing a media Q&A right after the practice, and maybe he's just playing it conservatively. I don't know, but he didn't sound to me overly optimistic he was going to be ready for week one. He was basically saying, I'll do what the doctors in my body tell me I can do. I'm hopeful, but I don't know. That was the kind of the gist of it. And so as I read that, I'm like, we're really close. I mean, so we're talking about September 7th, and here we are. What is it today? Today's August 20th, and he's still not doing team drills. He's not going to play, obviously. They haven't said this, but there's no way they can have him play on Thursday. So Art Stapleton seems to be optimistic he's going to be ready for the opener. Others don't, like Pat Leonard. We'll have to wait and see. Listening to Andrew, I wasn't overly encouraged that he'll be ready. And I wouldn't push it if I were them either.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising, right? We were talking about, we didn't know where this was going to go. And he was the one guy, though, at least the talk was at some point we expect we're going to pull him off the pup. But then there was a guy like Skattebo who's been not practicing at all, has not done anything at all. He's had a hamstring injury that technically is 3 times that he's had it this calendar year, certainly since he's been part of the Giants.
The team has not told us he has a hamstring injury.
Right. And now all of a sudden he's back at practice. So that's the muddying, though. That's a good news, but it muddied the water at running back. It muddies
the water. And then also Brandon, our assistant chief, Brown came out and had a press conference, and some of the things he said about some of the players that we have questions about seem to strongly suggest that they may be safe. Jalen Hyatt, for one, he seemed to be. I mean, if you watched or listened to the press conference, it seemed to me that they're counting on Jalen. So I thought that was. So I was like, oh, all right, maybe he's safer than some of us think he is. So that's Brandon said, and to Jameis Winston, you and I were speculating all along, is Jameis Winston possible trade bait? Well, unless he's like I said on the site, unless he's a great poker player, Jameis isn't going anywhere. I mean, he basically came out and said, no, we're not getting rid of Jameis. So clarity again on that front.
And it makes sense even if you thought you might trade him, right? Even if it's not now, even if you thought later, you're not going to say that. You certainly want to make sure that he's here.
Right, that's true.
Because the Giants aren't shopping. They're if anything, people would have been calling to check. But I did take from it that the questions that a lot of people had on the table have probably been taken off, at least for now, for sure. And it does kind of make sense that if he's the 2-year guy, that I think the Giants have pegged him as being Dart's backup for next year. Like they were planning when they got him for the 2-year contract that whoever they got, Jameis was going to ultimately be there, whether the bridge to that guy or he was going to be that guy's backup. So we'll see how that shakes out.
It wasn't just the fact that he said, no, we're not shopping him. It's what he said. He said again, I'm paraphrasing. He's too valuable what he brings to the room. And he brought up things that you wouldn't normally bring up. He does yoga. He does yoga with Jaxson. He has a Bible study group. He was talking about things that he does long after practice in the quarterback room, and the impact, the calming influence he has on everybody. It's just the way he answered the question. It kind of was like, it was dismissive. It was like, no, no. Let's end
And here's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one
again, if they do it, then he's a good poker player. But I came away from that going, they're not getting rid of Jameis.
Yeah, I think I feel like, and there was one other thing that he said too that made me think, and then I'll get to the rest of what I was about to say, is that he brought up that Jameis wants to be here.
Yes.
So it seems Jameis is he knows the writing's on the wall that it's Wilson, and again, you and I kind of go back and forth on whether we will fully say the Giants have done everything possible. That makes it seem like Dart would be the backup. You've given him all the backup spots. He's taken all those reps. Jameis barely plays in the game. It seems almost like it's a foregone conclusion that Dart's backup. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean game one he will be, but it sure seems like it.
Right.
If that's the case, you then laid the foundation. Jameis wants to be here. Here's all the reasons this is great that he is here, kind of like building up, like, maybe don't ask Jameis these questions. This is why he wants to be here. Giants aren't getting rid of him. He doesn't want to go anywhere. This should be not a question coming up.
Right. But again, the only caveat I will throw out there, if some team, and I don't think they're going to do this, but if some team called me and offered something significant, I would listen. Now, the odds on that happening are probably not great, but you and I have talked, there are quarterback issues around this league, and Jameis could theoretically have more value than you normally would think. The argument is by a lot of fans out there, well, if teams really wanted Jameis, they would have signed him really cheap in free agency. Yeah, but the things have changed. Some of the quarterbacks that were signed haven't panned out for other teams, and some people have gotten hurt, and some people are going to get hurt. So that's the only other thing. So if you're before the trade deadline, if we're in October or we're in September even, and somebody gets hurt and somebody calls the Giants, and Jameis is the third string quarterback who's inactive, and they say, we'll give you a third round pick. I'm listening to that. So, but anyways, I don't think they're going to do it. I think we can put this discussion in rear view mirror for
Would you think though that if something like that did pop up, they would probably go to him and say, do you have any interest in going to be a starter with this team, or do you want to stay here?
I would think so.
That sounds like, that's what it sounded like to me. Is like, we're not going to try to trade the guy. We might let him know, somebody's off. Someone's saying that they have a chance to make a run. They just lost their guy and they want you to come in. I don't think he goes anywhere to be somebody's backup. He's already a backup. It would be if somebody desperately needed a starter, and then maybe. But
I think I agree with that completely. Yeah. Yes, he didn't want to leave if he's just going to be a backup to somebody, I think. But again, if somebody, they don't have to have his permission. Let's just be clear about that.
Right.
So again, I don't think we should spend too much more time on that. But
what about Skattebo then? Your thoughts there, and in terms of playing in the game, which I have my own thoughts on whether he should play or not play
this Thursday, tomorrow?
In this Thursday's game. I can't imagine, just because.
Oh God, I wouldn't play him. There were conflicting media reports on what degree of practice he had yesterday. Some people said he did 7-on-7 drills. Some seem to say he did more than that. But
you froze on that one, so I'm going to wait. I got you.
Are we there?
Yep, you're there. Sorry, okay. You froze for a minute. So
okay, yeah, okay, but I don't think he's. I don't think he's 100. I wouldn't go from 0 to 60 with him very quickly. So again, it's a hamstring. I wouldn't play him tomorrow because if he does it again, we probably won't see him for a couple of months. That's what I'm warning.
Yeah,
that would be my warning. Would be like, just get past this game, and then you got till September 7th for it to get really, really healed up. They're going to be practicing. I think there's like 8 or 9 practices between now and the start. Most of those are going to not be padded, but he'll get his work in. But I wouldn't play him. What it does though is it complicates the 53-man roster, because now do you carry 4 running backs, and everybody's saying, oh God, yeah, you carry 4 running backs, no problem. This is no brainer. Maybe, but if you do, then can you carry 4 tight ends?
Right.
And if you carry 4 tight ends, then do you carry 1 less offensive lineman, or do you go take somebody off the defense? I mean, they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks. So at some place, people love to say, yeah, duh, but then they don't think through what that means on the rest of the roster. So I would hate to lose Turbo Miller. In the back of my mind is what I keep repeating, though, and I would not get rid of Turbo Miller. But since Daboll's been here, I went back and looked at like the number of carries by the running backs each year. In the 3rd and 4th running backs under Daboll and Kafka have hardly touched the football. Now, some people can argue, and they may be right, well, we had Saquon here, and that skewed things. But even last year, it was kind of like everybody else was an afterthought after you got back past Tracy and Singletary. So if you have Turbo and they use him as a gunner, that makes sense. I'm just worried that you get a guy on the, if they get a 4th running back, I hope they use him. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And I would say too, you could add in, take the Saquon part of it out, right? Because last year we didn't have him. You could add in the fact that the Giants offense just was really never in positions to be running constantly. Like if you had a lead, you're running to maybe eat the clock. You're running to pick up first downs, and the Giants offense just wasn't good enough to consistently do that. So you're going to be top heavy on who gets carries because those guys aren't being worn down.
Right.
The Giants offense averaged 15 points a game, and that's being generous with the Colts game thrown in. So this is a much different team. My concern is if you go 3 running backs though, and Skattebo's one of the 3,
right.
You've got a guy with a potentially gimpy leg, and of the 3 guys.
Yeah, and which begs the question: if Skattebo had been healthy all preseason and had looked good, was Singletary vulnerable at that point?
Right.
So, but now I wouldn't get rid of Singletary right now with Skattebo being a question mark, because then you're down. If Tracy gets hurt and Skattebo's not 100%, you don't want Dante Miller being a feature back. He's not that kind of guy.
Right.
So I think we're kind of stuck. If you want to keep Tracy, you got to carry 4 running backs, and then we're going to have to carry 9 offensive linemen or 3 tight ends or something. I don't know. We're going to have to figure out something on that. So
yeah, I agree. If we go 4 running backs, something has to be juggled somewhere else. It could be one of the tight ends. That makes the most sense overall because, again, you can make up for it if the Giants keep a Chapman at defensive line and they keep using him as a blocking fullback. Now you get that extra blocker. If you need to get bigger, you could bring him in as a fullback instead of going one more tight end in a blocking situation. There are those pieces, but the juggling after this game is going to be very interesting, and we'll definitely be able to cover that later. So
are we overrating Dulcich? I mean, that's my question. I like the guy. I've been talking about him since they got him. I think he's the second best right now, the second best pass receiving tight end we have on the team. I just don't know if I'm overrating him. So can they cut him and put him on the practice squad? Some Giants fans think so. I don't think so, but I don't know if I'm overrating him. I like him, but again, he's one of my personal favorites right now.
You won me over on him. I worry that maybe we're putting too much stock in Fedoni being a draft pick and the Giants may be trying to keep him. He might be able to slide through to the practice squad just because you really don't have anything proven.
Right.
If the Giants don't showcase Fedoni much at all tomorrow night, like even if he, or tonight, tomorrow night, geez, my days all mixed up. Tomorrow night, even if he plays, but they don't throw him the ball and it's pretty quiet, that might be by design.
Right.
So we'll have to see. So I'm not really sure. What I do wonder, though, is I've mentioned this before. I think Bellinger might be the guy that's in trouble. But would you say, though, if roster juggling comes down to where we have to go 3 tight ends, is Bellinger, if you take out Fedoni and Dulcich at the moment, like not including them in an argument about anything, really the veteran piece is going to come down to Bellinger or Manhurts. You can't keep both in a 3 tight end situation.
No. So the problem is Manhurts, let's be honest, Manhurts is really one-dimensional, but he's the best blocking tight end, and you've mentioned it before, they seem to really like him. But is there enough talent with the other guys now for them to say, you know what, and plus Chapman, we're just going to part ways? I don't know. That's tight end is the one position I don't have a feel for. I know Theo Johnson's a starter. I would hate for them to let go of Fedoni because I think some team could pick him up and on their 53. maybe again I'm over it. Because remember last year you and I liked Turbo last year, and Cy said you guys are overrating Turbo. No one's gonna claim him, and he was
Right.
right. You stayed on. I don't know if that's true with Turbo this year though. I think Turbo's shown enough in the preseason where people are like, the Jets certainly will got a good look at him. They'll be like, so
Sure. Sure.
yeah.
And I think Dallas has some weakness at running back as you go a little further in. There are other teams. Now, there are a lot of teams with like Washington has a plethora of running backs. They're only going to be able to keep so many, and they're already trying to trade Brian Robinson. So there may be backs available. The Giants might be saying we're willing to risk trying to pass Miller through, and if we lose him, we lose him kind of deal.
Right.
We'll see. The juggling of the roster of these positions are interesting. So let's jump out to wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt was mentioned very specifically. You got the impression, I kind of feel like the same thing based on what was said, that he's maybe given that one more chance that they have a plan for him, or at least hope to make it. It's not a huge surprise per se, because really once you get past Slayton and you go Nabers, Wandell, Slayton, from there on, it's all question marks. I guess Hyatt, he's the last or least of the questions based on the fact that what he did in college, where he was drafted, the fact that he's been with the team for a few years, but his production is barely less of a question than the rest of the unknown guys.
Yeah, I mean, and it's what Brandon Brown was talking about. He said he may only touch the ball 3 or 4 times a game, but those 3 or 4 times a game will impact the entire game. It's what he was saying.
Right.
He was basically saying, again, and he may be dead wrong. To date, he hasn't shown this stuff. So, but he was basically saying he was basically telling the press he's got more value than you guys realize because of his ability to impact the game with his speed.
Right.
And so I came away with going that they're not getting rid of him. Now, that being said, I am very curious to see how much he plays on Thursday. He had 16 snaps he was on a snap pitch count on Saturday against the Jets, which you and I thought was a little weird unless it's injury related. They didn't want to, who knows what his injury was. We still don't know what his injury was. Is he going to be on a pitch count on Thursday? Is he going to play on Thursday? And again, and behind the scenes on all of this is the Giants have the 3rd overall selection in the waiver wire pickup. And you and I have said, corner might be a place they might look. Defensive lineman might be a place. But we've also said wide receiver might be a place that they look. I think Bo Collins has made the team. Again, Brandon Brown brought up Collins unprompted. At the end of the thing, they asked about Chapman and they asked about Turbo. And he was almost like, well, don't forget about Bo Collins. So it was like, and plus we've seen, he's been playing with the first team. I think we all pretty much thought he was going to make it anyways. But I think Bo Collins has made it. The question is now, how much should we read into the fact that Smith Marset that was not playing last Saturday when he was healthy? Should we read into any of that? The special teams coach was kind of like, no, don't read too much into that. But I'm not so sure. And then, of course, Gunner has been doing better than we thought in terms of receiving. And then you got Montreal Washington, who's also a returner. So I think, again, it's Nabers, Slayton, Robinson, probably Hyatt, Bo Collins, and then is it one of those 3 guys is the returner, and or is there a guy out there on the waiver wire that we're like, that kind of thing.
And the roster juggling comes into play again, right? If the Giants really wanted to, I think if they could have spaced it the right way, they probably like to go 7 at wide receiver and have that 7th guy be the return guy, and 6 guys you can always, but you're not gonna.
I don't think they can do 7.
You got to go 6. There's no way. Yeah, there's no way.
I mean, you could, but I don't. The roster would be. I don't think they can do that. Again, I've been wrong with roster predictions before. I'm usually not very wrong, but I haven't gotten a spot here and there wrong. 7 to me just doesn't seem realistic given the fact what they've got at tight end and what they want to do on the offensive line and quarterback. If you were carrying 2 quarterbacks on your 53-man roster, then yes, you could do 7 wide receivers. But if you go through, again, I don't want to spend too much time. It's hard to do it. If for those of you who don't think it's hard, try to do it. Try to come up with a roster right now and be realistic about it. You got to have backups in case people tear their ACLs. You can't be like, we're going to carry 2 safeties or something. You can't be doing something weird like that.
And I did see on BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com, on the game preview that you wrote up, somebody had posted, well, the Giants could go with Newbin, Belton, and Holland as the 3 safeties, just 3
They
safeties.
could, but have they
That's, to
done that
me, is,
before?
well, can you though? Because Newbin's already nicked up a little bit. Can you
Right.
risk going with just 3?
I don't think they've ever done that before. I'm actually a little worried in the last preseason game because Raheem Lane supposedly left practice early. Again, we don't know what it was, but you don't want Holland, Newbin, and Belton playing. I don't want Belton playing a lot in the last game. If they want to play him a quarter or something, that's fine. But we don't have a lot of safeties right now just to finish the game. They've got Wallace and they've got Makari Page. So if Raheem Lane can't play, it's a numbers thing where you're like, oh my, sometimes you have to play a player you don't want to play, but because other people are injured, you have to. So I don't want to. And one of the coaches was asked that yesterday. I think it was Charlie Bullen, the outside linebackers coach. They were saying, why did Chauncey Golston play so late in the game against the Jets? And he said, we had to spell Tamon Fox and Ford at linebacker because they had been playing so many snaps. So we had to kind of like put people back in because we don't have a lot of guys behind the frontline players. So that's the kind of thing that I'm always, again, glad when we get past this last game, and I don't like them playing it on a short week either. It just, the whole thing is weird. And this is one game where like, let's just get out of here. It's been annoying in recent years that guys that were going to get cut got hurt in this last game, ended up on IR, and we had to pay either an injury settlement or we had to like keep them on IR all year. And that goes against the salary cap.
Right.
So, and you're like, oh Christ. And now people are saying, oh, it's such a small amount, but if it's $800,000 here, it's $1 million there, it ends up
Sure.
impacting the salary cap. So,
as far as some of the other defensive players, cornerback is going to be interesting on what we do. At this point, let's just kind of overview. Dayball, we're not really getting a full sense of whether he is going to go starters to even play a little bit. Some people are saying I want to say, was it Duggan, I think, said he didn't think they would be playing.
Yeah, he was the one who said he didn't think they were going to be playing.
And I got to feel like that might be right on some of these guys, because they're really, what's the point of playing some of these guys? But they did say there are roster spots not decided. Now that could just be lip service. They might know everybody.
No, I think that's true. I think that's true. It might not be many, but I think that's true.
So, but you do have to field 22 starters, 11 on each side.
Right.
We think Dart is going to play, and we think he's going to play a decent amount, correct?
I would expect Dart to play. I would be I will be somewhat surprised if he doesn't play, because he may not play. And if somebody said the same thing on, it was either ESPN or Fox Sports or something today, they were saying the same thing. They were saying it might be a while until Dart gets into a game again. So you'd want to play him. And again, the offensive line, the backups have actually done a decent job. So I don't worry about his he's not going to be behind a sieve. So I wouldn't worry about, players going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt. So I would play him. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays a whole half, if Dart plays a whole that much. So I think Dart is probably going to be the one guy that everybody is tuning in to watch on Thursday. Hopefully he has another positive performance. If he doesn't, we're never going to hear the end of it until he ever plays again. They're going to be like, oh my God, Dart stinks. So I just hope he has at some point, guys, he's going to throw an interception. It comes with the territory. That's all I'm going to say. I can't believe he's played as well as he has to date. There hasn't even been one of these things. Am I incorrect? There hasn't even been a dropped interception or one where we're like, oh, we got away with that one.
There was the called back one against Buffalo.
That was Jameis.
I thought Dart was
there was an interception that was thrown that Jameis threw, and it got called back from a penalty. It wasn't Dart. But anyways,
there was something on one of his early drives in their territory.
Okay.
But that was it. As you've said, as Cy said, he hasn't thrown the ball down the field that far. this might be a game where they let him open it up a little bit, which would open up the possibility to an interception. You're going to press the ball down the field. Let's go ahead and see what you got. I do think, though, it will be very telling if he only plays like 2 series, regardless of what happens, and they just pull it and it goes Winston, Devito. You've got your answer of who the backup quarterback is. If they let him play longer, that might play into the idea that they want him to play longer, get more his feet wet. But technically, when we run into the season, Jameis is the 2, and he'll be the emergency until it's ready to go. I think he would jump Jameis and be the starter at that point if anything ever happened to Wilson.
Well, or you could argue that if the more he plays, the more likely he's the number 2, though, because you could say they're getting him ready. They want to get him ready.
I think you could. That's true. My only thought with that is after you get past like the first quarter, you're going to get pretty deep in the guys on the roster who aren't going to make it. And that makes it a lot harder for your quarterback to really, he's not developing anything with the guys he's not going to play with. So,
but he's getting experience. I know what you're saying. You're not incorrect, but he's the way I look at this is simplistic, maybe overly simplistic. I look at this as the more he plays now, the more he's going to get the bad out of the system. Every quarterback has bad. The best quarterbacks in the NFL, the Joe Burrows of the world, will have bad even in their 10th season or whatever. You always have bad. And then you hope when you have a quarterback, he just gets less bad and better and better and better and better. So there's always going to be some degree of bad. I just feel like the more he gets the worst of the bad, does that make sense? The worst of the bad out of the system now, you don't have to worry about it later. So have him learn, have the mistakes be the stupid mistakes, have them happen now. Where he's like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Why did I throw that there? And we haven't seen a lot of that yet. And he's going to do that. All quarterbacks do that. Even the great ones that you say, why the hell did he throw that pass?
Sure.
And that's one of the things that I have found irritating about like Twitter is there seems to be an expectation level among fans of all teams and all quarterbacks that players aren't supposed to make mistakes ever. So,
right.
And it's unbelievable. So it's kind of like you'll go on and you'll see some fantastic player make a mistake and they're all jumping on him. And I'm like, it's football. That's the way it is.
It happens. So if in a perfect world, how long would you play him? You personally?
I'd play half. I'd play Dart a half, and then I'd probably market Devito. I'd probably have Devito sink or swim on his own in the half, and if he plays great in the second half, then he helps the Giants, and if he plays like crap in the second half, he's going to get cut, and maybe in a way that works out for the Giants because then he goes to the practice squad. But I don't even know if I would play Winston that much. I don't know what the point of playing Winston would be. Do you in the last game?
Just to not risk. If Dart is your backup quarterback, I don't want him playing with the guys who I know I'm absolutely cutting.
No, I mean if Dart, assuming Dart plays, even if Dart doesn't.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Instead of Devito, just play Devito. Play Devito. You're right.
So I guess what I'm saying is what's the advantage of playing Winston over DeVito in the last game?
You're right.
I think you're trying to showcase him, or I don't know. I mean,
there really isn't.
DeVito's not making this team, right? He's not making the team.
I can't imagine how.
Right?
We're already juggling roster spots. If you go 4 quarterbacks, you're in big trouble. I don't know where you would find that position.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, so if you're keeping Jameis, and Brandon Brown said they're keeping Jameis, DeVito's gone. So, anyways, I would expect. I wouldn't mind if Dart played a half and DeVito played a half. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
I
don't know if they'll do that, but I wouldn't mind that.
So, cornerback we'll be watching. I don't know if Flott is going to play. I don't know if Banks is going to play. If both of them do play, I don't know how much they'll actually play.
Banks did not practice yesterday, so I doubt he plays.
And then I doubt you play Flott then because you can't risk him getting hurt.
I'd be afraid to play Flott because if Flott gets hurt, then I would be afraid to play.
Hawkins is back practicing.
No,
he wasn't back at all.
Nope.
So now you're down to basically guys like Art Green. You're down to Dick Jones.
I want to clarify because Dable said Hawkins was going to be back, but Dugan tweeted out that, and another reporter tweeted out that Hawkins was on the sideline. So that's what I'm saying is be careful of what Dable said because it didn't match what happened in practice. So when you read Dable's remarks, you're like, hooray, the whole team's coming back. And then you read what Dugan tweeted out, and it was like, well, crap, he's not really back. He's not really back. I mean, it wasn't bad news, but it wasn't as giddy, happy, joy as it sounded like originally.
So at corner, you're going to have guys like Green.
It'll be like those guys. It'll be those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Jones, those guys. I don't know that we're really going to learn anything from those guys because, quite frankly, I don't think any of them are going to make this team. We're going to be looking for cornerback outside of our own group. You're going to keep Plott and Banks. Hawkins is a big question mark of whether you keep him because he's never healthy.
I think there's an tremendous opportunity for one of these other corners to make a statement, but like you, they probably won't. I know you don't like the guy, but Art Green has the best chance because he's the gunner right now.
Sure.
And we saw him give up one or two plays against the Jets. You see his name mentioned in practice positively every now and then. Corey Black's there too, but I don't think he's been playing gunner, even though he did that in college. So that's the one spot you and I keep bringing up. Waiver wire claim to get somebody else.
Right. And there are still some veterans out there, as we mentioned, Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel. Those are both veteran free agents still right at the moment that could be had for somebody. So, yeah, I suspect we're going to get a veteran corner.
Our depth corners are not going to be playing. For people watching the game, if you start freaking out about the secondary, you're not looking at the depth chart. So if people like O'Donnell, Fortune, and Art Green, and who else are we talking about here? Corey Black, who we hope shows something.
Yeah, I would like to see him play a lot.
It's TJ Moore and D. Williams. These are guys that, again, our backup cornerback on this team is either going to be Deontay Banks or Cordell Flott. That's the backup cornerback.
Right.
And so don't look at D. Williams and think, oh my God, our backup cornerback stinks. But that being said, John and I have said we'd like to be a little deeper there, and we'd like to have another guy, a veteran, that if something happens to somebody can come in and be have a floor that you're like comfortable with. Right now, I don't think you want Art Green being the guy that comes off the bench if two corners get hurt in a game.
Right.
That's the kind of situation we're in right now. So,
and then I would think defensive line is going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Because I'm with you. Your review, you mentioned it. I think we're going to be looking D-line for the waiver wire as possibly someone. Because I think that's where you can churn the most. You got guys, but they're just guys.
Well, I don't understand why Joe Shane is so optimistic about the defensive line. So I don't think Chapman has had a good preseason at all. And again, I think he's a great story. I'm not rooting against the guy. Everyone thinks I'm picking on him, but he's and he can make a player here and there. But if you saw him against the Jets, and he kind of did the same thing against the Bills where the Giants defense actually played better, he was getting blown off the ball, but he's a small guy. And then Nunez Roches, they mic'd him up. He's got a great cheerleading voice, but I don't know what he brings. I don't know what he brings to the table. So when they had Chapman, and you brought this up in our last thing, when they had Chapman and Nunez Roches on the field at the same time, it was like, well, that's great for the other team. You know, small up front in the middle. So unfortunately, Darius Alexander does not look like he's ready to be I'm not down on him, but he didn't come in like gangbusters. Other people have pointed out smartly in the corner today. They've said they listed all the Giants defensive tackles that didn't make any noise in their first year, the Linval Josephs of the world and all that. They went through them all. I'm not worried about that, but I'm not crazy about our defensive line situation. And I don't know, will a team release somebody that's really going to help us? I don't know. Those guys are premium guys.
There might be, again, they'll be north of 30, and their contract's going to be a little bloated. Those guys get cut and become free. You probably won't claim them on waivers. Those are guys that you would want to let pass through. After 4 years, they won't matter anyway. They can become free agents. So you're going to look and maybe sign a guy. But then again, do you wait 2 weeks into the season where those contracts don't become guaranteed? And then you can just go ahead and sign a guy and say, okay, we're just going to bring this guy in. Who knows? But I think they've got to fill that spot. Now, inside linebacker is interesting to me.
Wait, before we go to that, I just want to finish up one thing. So before everyone gets too down, Roy Robertson Harris playing next to Dexter is much better situation than Nunez Roches playing next to Dexter, which is the situation we had last year.
Right.
So it is better than last year. It's the depth that I worry about, and the fact that Roy Robertson Harris is older, and you would like to get a rotation in there. So it's not terrible. And Andre Patterson seems to be fairly high on Roy Robertson Harris. So we'll see about that. It's just I would like to get another body in there. I just want to finish up with that.
Sure.
So
And we'll keep this pretty darn tight.
Yeah.
We wanted to keep it to a half hour. We're just a little over half hour. So inside linebacker is going to be one to watch. I'm still not 100% sold on what's going to happen with Bobby Okereke. There's too many things being talked about, too many kind of weird things that are suddenly coming out by reporters. And it's odd that it's coming out now. And there was some that supposedly there was some trade talk in the offseason that had come up. Now there's like, they're making a big deal about what happened last weekend. It could be absolutely nothing. It could be something. I'm not sold that the Giants themselves are sold on Okereke long term. That from where he's gone, and maybe he was more of a wink guy for them than what's now happened since, and that's kind of a problem for them. I don't know, but it is a place that if the Giants decide to go younger, and again, Carter can play inside some if they want to get three guys on the field. Have Thibodeau and Burns and Carter on the field. You can move Carter inside and have him play a little bit there. That lessens the need per se. It'll be interesting, but younger guys playing tomorrow. Musau, I think, is definitely going to play. McFadden probably won't play. And then who are we looking at? Board maybe, but he didn't do enough, I think, to justify being on the team at the moment.
Well, they signed him for special teams. I think he's almost guaranteed a roster spot because they signed him to be the special teams ace.
Okay,
I think,
all right.
And they keep rolling him out as second team linebacker. So I agree with you that his linebacker play hasn't been stellar, but I think he's their special teams guy. So I think he's not going anywhere. I think Deontay Johnson is playing for a practice squad spot. That Demetrius Flanagan Foles missed in all of camp. He's still injured. So I don't know. Again, we don't know what he's injured with, but he hasn't practiced all summer. So I don't know if when they cut him, I assume it could be even being waived injured or something like that or whatever. But they also may try to get him on the practice squad if he's not too badly hurt. But I think that the inside linebackers, I don't see Bobby Okereke going anywhere for a couple reasons. Number one, who's going to replace him? Unless, like you said, they can put Abdul Carter sometimes in there, but he's not really a traditional middle linebacker. And
right.
Then I wouldn't rely on McFadden being the guy. So I think they're stuck with Bobby Okereke. And if Bobby has a rebound season, he's here. And if he doesn't have a rebound season, he's gone next year. He's making way too much money for them to be mediocre. So I don't see how Bobby would be on thin ice here, because I don't know what you would do if you got rid of him. There's nobody to turn to unless you really love Darius Muasau. And I think he's an okay player. And I think Darius might replace McFadden next year, but I don't think you want him to be. Bobby's like the one thing Shane Bowen keeps talking about all off season was how Javon Holland and Bobby Okereke are the communicators on the defense. He keeps saying that he firmly believes that the middle linebacker and the safety have to be the glue that holds the entire defense together. And he singled out Okereke and Holland a couple of times in two of his press conferences. So I don't see where Bobby would be vulnerable right now. That's just my take.
Yeah.
But if you're right, I'll be like, holy crap, you got that right. I don't.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, and I'm not saying it will definitely happen. There's just something weird going on there. You could say if they're starting to project ahead to next year, if they're thinking we already know we're going to need some inside people, right. Like we're not confident in McFadden, we don't want to give him a big contract next year, we don't really want Bobby beyond this year, then moving on from him this year makes sense. So, but we'll see.
Sky is very high on the inside linebacker group in the draft. In the draft in 2026, there's a bunch of them. So we could get another inside linebacker next year in the draft.
And some of it too depends on really, like, again, roster juggling is going to be interesting, but we're going to deal with that after the fact. So that being said, anybody in particular that you want to see tomorrow night, and then we'll wrap this up.
Dart, I mean, to me, of all the guys that I don't think the starters are going to play. Could they? Sure. If they do, I think it'll be a series or two. I'm not expecting it, but I expect Dart to play. But a lot of the guys elsewhere, I'm kind of like, I'm not going to feel strongly one way or the other if they have a good or a bad game. A lot of the defensive backs that are going to play, like we just said, aren't going to make the team. They might make the practice squad, but they're not going to make the team. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape if our corners don't look great tomorrow, because our real corners aren't going to be playing unless Cordell Flott plays, like we said. And you and I were like, would you really want to play Cordell Flott? We're not. And Paulson Adebo. You want Paulson Adebo to really?
Yeah,
really
no, definitely not.
I wouldn't play Andrew. One of the most important players on this team right now is Andrew Phillips. People have always said, who are the guys that the Giants can ill afford to have an injury? And they're obvious. They're like Malik Nabers and Andrew Thomas. I think Andrew Phillips is one of those guys, because I think if he goes down, then you've got to put somebody like Cordell back inside. And I don't think that's an ideal. That whole domino effect would be a problem. So who else would I be looking for? I guess just see. I hope Josh Azudu plays, but he was injured. Again, we don't know what but I hope Josh Azudu plays. But I would like to see how the offensive line is going to get finalized. I'll throw another one out there. Evan Neal. Neal should play a lot, right?
I agree with you. I won't pick some of the ones you did just because you already did, and it's obvious. So I don't want to do the same thing. I do want to see Corey Black. He could be the end of the roster corner guy that could be there, and they drafted him. I definitely want to see at wide receiver if Hyatt plays. It would be nice to see him actually catch a ball down the field and see the Giants stretch it to him, especially if Dart's the quarterback out there. I'd like to see that combo.
Right.
And then the other thing is, and it's the guy that I'm actually pulling for, is I want to see Gunnar Olszewski. I want to see him returning, and I want to see him playing wide receiver. If he's playing wide receiver early and he's making catches and stuff, and then have him return kicks, that could be a sign that that's exactly what he's going to be.
Yes, I agree with that. Or Montreal Washington. If Montreal Washington is returning kicks, that could be a sign that he's ahead of. And Amir, does Smith Marset play again? I mean, sit out again. In other words, I don't know. I'm looking real quick to anyone else on here. Again, I think Neal. This is a really important game for Neal, and I'd like to see Darius Alexander get a sack. That's again. Sure. I know he's not been doing anything, but I'd like to have him finish the preseason on a high note. I hope he does something where you're like, there it is. There's the tease, there's the talent. We just got to get more consistency out of that. So I hope he doesn't have like a third really, really quiet game in a row.
So with that, we'll wrap it up. So tomorrow night's the preseason game. I don't know if we've actually made a decision on what we were doing. We were gonna, then we weren't gonna do it, and then I said we're gonna, but
I think given what's going on with you, I think it's best. I think it's best that we don't do it, and then we'll regroup after the game. So I think that's the priority.
Yeah, and then we will also coming up on cut down day, you and I will talk.
Yeah.
I think I'll arrange my schedule in a way that we can do cut down, be there at 4 when the cut downs are happening, and we can really just deal with it. But we'll talk about how we want to do that.
Yeah, and that's weird because last year didn't they do cut down day and the Giants cuts didn't come out at 4 p.m. It was like, where are our cuts? So I hope it's not one of these deals where you and I are like, where are our cuts?
And technically, the Giants could start cutting over the weekend. They don't have to wait till Tuesday.
Oh,
they can, and they have a head start. They're one of the 4 teams that have a head start. So, with that being said, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we really appreciate the merch link is there, and we'll catch you guys again here real soon.